I finished about 20 minutes ago. It's currently 11:38 p.m. The game was almost 4.5 hours. And yeah, it was a long one. It was a long fight. Super interesting. I'm probably going to try and keep this brief because I have not had dinner yet. But there's one restaurant that's open for the next several hours. So hopefully they have good food. But anyway, I was playing Eugene Yanayt, who is a FIDE master, and I did a bit of prep before the game, decided to play pawn to e4. He played c5, this was expected, knight c3, and I saw in his previous tournament games and online games, he's mainly played g6 and knight c6, and I was prepared for both moves. More so for g6, but he decided to play knight c6. He told me after the game that he's seen that I've played h4 before, and it's a scary line. So he went for knight c6. And here I played a line that I learned years ago that I haven't played so much recently, but it starts with bishop to b5, knight d4, and bishop c4. Now, recently, knight f3 is kind of the more trendy move and probably objectively the best move for white. But bishop c4 was an old line I used back when I was maybe rated around 2100, and I used this to get to the master level. And there is a trap here which my opponent had fallen for in 2015. So I thought that maybe he would not necessarily fall for it again, but maybe be out of his comfort zone in this opening. And the trap that he fell for in 2015 was after g6, knight e2, bishop g7, takes queen f3. He played the very natural e6, which walks into knight b5, and white's getting massive initiative. I actually gave a lecture in the St. Louis Chess Club all about this line, and the point is after d6, queen a3, and white's doing really well here. So black really has to know what they're doing. The best move is knight h6 in this position, and I was prepared to go into this line, but instead of g6, my opponent played e6, and this is a different line entirely. I checked this before the game. I played knight e2, he played knight f6, and I castle. And in this position, there's another really cool trap for white that black could easily stumble into if the black player is not familiar with this line. And the trap is if black plays d5, which is actually the most common move played on Lichess, this walks into takes, and then knight take, wait, no, not knight takes d4, but knight takes d5. And after knight takes d5, knight takes d4, pawn takes d4, white has just sacrificed a piece, but there's massive compensation after queen h5. And this is known to be really, really good for white. Bishop e6 looks like it defends everything, but it walks into rook e1. And the pawn is pinned, so the bishop's hanging, and the bishop is pinned, so the knight's also hanging, attacked twice. And black has really no good defense here. If knight f4, then there's bishop b5, and yeah, king e7, queen g5 will pick up the knight. And the reason why I'm showing this line is because my opponent presumably knew about this, and he played the best move. Instead of going for d5 immediately, he went for pawn a6. And after I play pawn a4, preventing b5, he then plays d5. So it's the same position as the trappy line I just showed, but with the inclusion of a6 and a4, the line actually doesn't work for white. And just to show, after takes, queen h5, it's the same position I just showed, but the problem is after bishop e6, rook e1, knight f4, there's no bishop b5 check. And this is why black was very wise to play a6 and basically include a6, a4, and this would be just losing for white. So my opponent knew about this, and I knew about this too. So going back just goes to show the subtle nuance of the line that a seemingly innocuous a6 just changes a whole variation. And instead of sacking the piece, I took once on d5 and then played bishop to a2. Now, I was still prepared. I had this position on my computer before the game. He played knight e6. I played pawn d3. he played bishop d6, and I played knight g3. And I spent a little bit of time in the last few moves because I was trying to remember what I looked at before the game. But once I played knight g3, I was sure that this is still within my computer preparation. And then here, he very quickly blitzed out the move pawn h5. And I asked him after the game if this was preparation on his part, and he told me that he looked at this position for about 30 seconds before the game. So we both had this position on our computer before the game. And the thing about this position is it's very close to equal after the following line, which we went into. And I was still prepared. I took on d5, still following Stockfish. Knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes g3. So I temporarily won a pawn on d5, but black is winning it back because my bishop's attacked. I have to take on e6, and then he has bishop takes h2. I knew that this line was possible before the game, and this was basically the worst case scenario of my preparation. I knew that this line is objectively just very close to equal, as we're going to see. But I thought that there's still chances for an interesting game, even though a lot of pieces get traded early. So I went ahead, I took back, and then he played the move queen to d6. And in this position, I forgot exactly what I had checked before the game, because I was pretty sure I checked the move bishop takes e6, and then the final move of my preparation would have been queen f3. But I did not check the in-between move queen d6. And when he played this move, I was very tempted to just play king g1, and after takes, go for queen f3. But I spent a lot of time here because there's another interesting option of playing the move bishop to f4. And he told me after the game that he just overlooked this move when he played queen d6. And the point is, if I play bishop f4, after takes, there's pawn to g3, and he has no time to recapture the bishop because the queen's attacked. And I spent a lot of time calculating the variations here. After queen f6, I was looking at takes, and I was trying to assess this position. I calculated this, and rook e1, but I just wasn't sure that I'm able to play for much of an edge because the prospect of like g5 and h4 looks scary. My b2 pawn is hanging in some cases. So after a long think, I decided to not play bishop f4, but to just go back to g1. You can see the timestamps here. Spent about 12 minutes, and then he took on e6. So he essentially got a free tempo, improving the queen, forcing my king back. And now I play queen f3. And at this point, I'm definitely out of my preparation, but I had a decent sense of the plans in the position. Like obviously, queen f3, I'm trying to activate and prepare bishop f4, and it's a question where black should put the king here. So he went ahead and castled. I played bishop f4, and then he played queen d5, which I think is a very fine move, just offering a queen trade. And here I realized that I can't really keep queens on the board without making a big concession. If I play the move queen e3, honestly, I didn't take so much time to make this decision, but I was scared of like g5 and h4, h3. I thought black's attack can very often be quicker. So I decided to take the queen. And after bishop takes d5, the position looks very close to just being a dead draw, like opposite color bishops, equal pawns, but there's still some imbalances in the position. And when I played my next move, I thought I was being very clever because essentially the main thing to realize is black's biggest liability is the c5 pawn. And what I really want to do is get a setup with something like a5 and b3 and ensure that the pawn can't be defended. And I also don't want to give black time to play this move pawn c4. So I was dreaming of a setup with like a5, b3, bishop e3, where the pawn will be a just long-term weakness. But the problem is if I play, for example, a5 right away, then there's pawn c4, and black can basically trade off the pawn. And if I play pawn b3 right away, then black can play pawn a5 and then b6, and then black's just really solid. So I decided to play the move rook to a3, which is not the first move that came to mind, But the idea is I'm preventing pawn c4 because then I can meet that with rook c3, essentially winning a pawn. And the calculation is this. Oh, actually, rook c3 probably isn't as good as just taking, because then takes rook c3, b5, b3, wins the bishop. So long story short, black can't get rid of the pawn right away, and b6 would run into a5, and the pawns would very soon become weak. So when I played this move, I was feeling good. I thought, like, I'm putting a little bit of positional pressure on black, preparing this. Eventually, I want to play this and really question how black's going to defend the pawn. And then he played the move bishop c6, which I think was a very fine move, essentially tying me down to a4. So if I play rook c3, then black is probably happy to trade. So I went pawn a5 here. And when I played this move, I realized that he can get away with playing pawn c4, which I was expecting. He didn't go for this, but I thought after takes and rook d4, it's probably very close to equal. But then he told me after the game that he was scared of bishop e3 takes, and the idea of this, which is actually really interesting because if takes, there's like rook d1 and very close to having some mating ideas for white with the d file and the bishop on b6. So for that reason, he didn't play c4. He played the move pawn to h4. And here, it's about to get really crazy. And I'm just going to show the next few moves because in this position, I was not anticipating what was going to happen next. I played king h2 because he wants to play h3. Like if I get complacent and play rook c3, h3, g3, h2 is checkmate. So I did not want to get mated. I thought the king on h2 is just a better square for the king because if h3, then I can safely play g3. But then he hits me with the move pawn to g5, which I did not see coming. And I realized I can't take the pawn because rook g8 and my g2 pawn hangs. And this would be very ugly for white. So I have to lose time moving my bishop. And then he plays pawn to g4. And he's basically sacking the c pawn to get a really scary looking attack. And during the game, I thought I had to just go into this line. I took on c5. And at this point, I really wasn't sure what was going on. Because after g3, I take, he takes, I take, my king is really exposed and the rook check is coming and my g2 pawn is falling. But once we got to this position, I realized that it's really not simple for black because white is currently up 2 pawns and I didn't see any forcing lines that allow black to win back both pawns or just exploit my king. Like, it seems like it's close to a mating net, but my king can almost in every line find some nice safety. So what ended up happening was rook dg8 was played. I play king f4, which looks super risky, but I have to play king f4 because if I play this, then rook g2 and c2 falls, and I think I'd be in trouble here. So after king f4, he took on g2 with the bishop. I should note if he takes with a rook, I have rook f2, just holding on to the second rank. So he took with the bishop, and then I'm very quickly able to consolidate. I play rook f2, he gives a check, I play king e3, and at this point my king is guaranteed to just find safety, and I'm up a pawn because it's 4-on-2 on the queen side. He does have this extra passed f pawn, but it can't really become dangerous anytime soon. So I was feeling really good here. I'm in great shape to win the game. Also, the time situation favored me. Next several moves were very natural for white. After king d2, rook e8. I was playing pretty quickly. I thought my rook is better just on an open file. He played king d7. I played pawn b4, rook h5, and rook g1. So I was, I was having a very big time advantage. I got kind of my ideal setup: defended bishop, safe king, more active rooks, and his queenside pawns are fixed. And I thought my idea from this position would be to eventually play c4, kick the bishop, and then later play d4, d5, and just keep gaining space. But as we're going to see, it wasn't so simple. And I really struggled to find a breakthrough. I'll play through the next several moves relatively quickly. There's a bit of dancing around, but I managed to get a really nice bishop on b6 and get his king very close to just being mated because the king has almost no legal moves. Seems like c4 is coming, and I was dreaming of teleporting this rook to c5. So after rook g8, I played rook e2, preparing rook e5. He plays rook to g3, which I think is a nice defensive move, because now if I play rook e5, he can defend with rook g5, and I can't quite deliver mate. So I played king c3, he plays rook g5, and this is where the dancing begins, because I was struggling to make progress. I moved back to d2. I realized my king was just blocking my c-pawn. He played rook g1. I played rook d8, rook h1, and I finally advanced the c-pawn. And at this point, I had the idea of playing king c3, rook b2, and then b5, cb5, or ab5, cb5, and that would potentially be checkmate, of course, if the rook isn't defending. But it seemed like there's so many mating ideas with the potential for b5 or d4, d5. But then he plays rook e1, and my king is a little bit of a target because he's getting ready to deliver checks. And after king c3, rook c1, I was really tempted to play king d4, but I wasn't sure about rook h4 and then where my king would try and find safety, because move back and then check and then move back and then rook h1 again. So I decided to try and trade a pair of rooks with rook c2. He played rook b1, I played rook b2, and we do trade the rooks. But the problem with trading the rooks is I don't have the extra rook to try and generate the mating threats, so it's still a question how white can win this position. And of course, I really want to play d4, d5, but whenever I play d4, my c4 pawn hangs. So he played rook f1. And yeah, I really wanted to play d4 here because after takes, check, if king d5, I have this move. Oh, but this doesn't work because after this, the bishop defends a rook. So yeah, that wouldn't work at all. There's also this move, and b4 is attacked. So I can't play d4 yet. I played king c3. He played rook h1. And then for the next several moves, I was just trying to find the optimal square for my king. I was imagining if I can get my king to e7, that would set up rook d6 check. So I play king d4, but then he plays rook h5 and he just cuts me off, and my king can't cross the fifth rank. So I walk towards this rook, he checks, king e4, rook h5, king f4, but then rook f5 check, and I'm not making progress. So I move back, and then I decide to try to do something on the queen side with king c3, rook h1, king c2, rook f1, king b3. I was imagining maybe I can get my king to a4 and play b5, but then the problem is if I play king a4, he has rook a1 check, so I'm really not making any progress. I play king a3, back to b2, and at this point, we've already repeated at least one of the positions twice, and I was scared of repeating the same position 3 times. I think this is one of the positions we had twice. So I decide to shift my rook to a different square. I play rook to b8. And even though I no longer cut the king off, the king is still tied down to defending b7. So it was a different way of trying to make progress. He plays rook f5. I play king e2. And then eventually I found what turned out to be a better square for my bishop on f4. And this way, the king is still restricted, but the bishop controls the d6 square. And we're going to see the usefulness of this square very soon. After rook h3, rook to d8. And when we got to this position, I was kind of breathing a sigh of relief because black is not stopping rook d6. And if I get in rook d6, then the king would be forced to c7, and at the very least, the bishop would fall with check. So At this point, he played maybe what is only move to try and fight, which is b5, but then I happily play rook d6 and start consuming the queenside pawns. After takes, bishop check, king d2. We played a few more moves, rook f3, check, king 8, rook g5, and he finally resigned in this position. So it took a ton of work to actually win this game. I should note the reason why black resigned is because the bishop is hit and a6 and rook g8 is coming, and yeah, I'm either promoting or mating, so there's really no hope for black. But it was a super long game, 72 moves. I spent so much energy, and towards the end of the game, I mean, we were both just living on the increment. There's no extra time after move 40, so it really just turned into a game of instinct and yeah, just trying to grind down the ending. So I think I'm fortunate to win this game because I really didn't get much of an edge out of the opening. I'm sure at some points he probably could have equalized. Now I haven't checked so closely with Engine, and I don't really have time to do so right now because I'm kind of hungry and sleepy. But I do hope you enjoyed this recap. Stay tuned for the next game. It will be round 2, starts at 11 a.m. Pacific time, June 9th. And I believe that game will be covered by Jonathan Trance on my Twitch channel. So be sure to check out twitch.tv/I'mRosen, and he'll be covering my game with commentary. I'll leave links below to the Lee Chess broadcast and the tournament page. But thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate all the kind comments and good luck wishes in my announcement video. And yeah, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you guys soon.